What up, everybody? It's iPad BeatMaking.com, and today we're going to talk about MultiTrackStudio or MTS Studio, which is a DAW that's available on iOS as well as Mac and PC and has been around for a really long time. In fact, you can search YouTube and you'll see videos going back 8 years or more of the iPad version of this DAW, which is pretty shocking. Now, I would not be surprised if you've never heard of this app, because usually when we think DAWs for iPad, we think Cubase, Beatmaker 3, Nano Studio 2, Audio Evolution Mobile, and even GarageBand, but not really MultiTrackStudio or MTS Studio as it's known in the App Store. But I have found this app and its unique workflow to be really special, especially as someone who uses a keyboard case with the iPad. It's got full QWERTY keyboard and trackpad support, and it has a lot of special features that set it apart from all other iOS or even desktop DAWs that I've come across. So today I'm going to give you a brief but thorough walkthrough of some of the MIDI capabilities of this app for you iPad beatmakers, so that you can see just how powerful this relatively little talked about and definitely underrated app really is. It's got a unique interface that takes a little bit of getting used to, but once you do, the payoff is huge. One thing that certainly stands out about this app is its maturity, both in looks and features, and it's still being updated and improved to this day, which is great for us iPad music makers. Now, there are so many features packed within this app that I'm not going to be able to go over everything, and specifically in this video, I'm going to focus on the MIDI side of its features. I'm not going to be going over the audio side at all, and I'm sure there's still going to be quite a few things that I'm going to be missing on the MIDI side as well. But what I really want to hone in on is the workflows for you iPad beatmakers. And this app is especially cool if you like to use a QWERTY keyboard with your iPad and a trackpad, which it fully supports, which I'll go over later in this video. But before we get started, let's talk price. This app is currently $30 in the App Store, and this $30 app is a pretty stripped down version of the app's full capabilities that feature only 16 audio or MIDI tracks, and there's a $25 Pro extension in-app purchase, which ups that limit to 64. Now, I'd really recommend buying this app only if you're gonna grab the Pro extension as well. The Pro extension adds groups, sidechaining capabilities, and yes, this includes sidechaining from your favorite AEV3s such as FabFilter Pro C2. It also adds time stretching, multi-channel audio playback, and a multi-MIDI editor, and much more. Now, I'm gonna level with you. The difference between the app with and without the Pro extension honestly is huge. So again, if you're gonna grab this app, I recommend doing so with getting the Pro extension in mind. So despite the $30 price in the App Store, let's call it a $55 app. Also keep in mind that these small windows to the right are only available on the 12.9-inch iPad as far as I know. On the 11-inch version, which I'm showing you now, you'll have to tap on the track name in order to access the audio editor or the piano roll. So with that said, for the rest of this walkthrough, I'll be using a 12.9-inch iPad, so while the edit window might not be there for you to the right if your iPad is not a 12.9-inch version, everything else should be pretty much the same. And I'm also using the Pro extension version of the app, which I recommend you grab. But if you haven't and you have this app, there's definitely going to be stuff that you see here that you won't have available in your version of the app. But with all that said, we've got a lot to cover, so let's get started. Alright, so starting from the top left corner here, we've got Song, and this is a drop-down menu when you tap it. And you can see we've got New Song, Open Song, and Song Properties here. And in this menu is where you're going to be able to rename your song, see the sample rate, and here you'll see your effect returns where you can set up to 4 of them, but if you set up 4 of them, you lose the ability to have groups. And then groups, you can have up to 8 of those. And groups are where you basically are bussing your tracks together. So say you've got a bunch of takes from the same audio source, like a vocal track, and you want all of them to have the same exact effects without taxing your system, you would put those into groups. And 8 is quite a bit, but keep in mind that you've got to get the Pro in-app purchase in order to get access to groups. And then you've got audio outputs, stereo, all available, and I guess you can leave comments on it as well, or you can even delete the song if you hate it that much. Here we've got the add track option, and we can add an audio track, a MIDI track, import an audio or MIDI file, or do a click track, and we'll get to that later on. And under Studio, we've got devices, and this lets you set up your MIDI devices here, as well as decide what your buffer size is going to be in terms of audio latency, set up your Bluetooth devices and all that kind of stuff. And next up, we've got preferences, where you can set up what the default instrument will be when you select a MIDI track, either an external MIDI instrument or a MultiTrackStudio instrument. And you can decide what middle C is going to be, C3, C4, or C5. New song's default sample rate, audio track quality, if it's going to be 24 bits or 16 bits. And keep in mind, you can only do 44.1 or 48 hertz. The desktop version of this app, I think, will let you go up to 96 or 192. So definitely something to consider if you're going in thinking you can get 96K out of this. You cannot currently. Also lets you set up some of your transport options like rewind on stop. You can make the editor have light colors or be the standard thing, left-handed handles for the lefties out there. And the selector delay is the time it takes from when you're pressing and holding and you get the selection to start working, or you get the special menu to pop up. This is the time it would take to do that. So you can set that up to be at 0.6 seconds or 0.3 seconds. So depends on how patient you are with wanting that selector menu to pop up. The bottom bar has CPU usage and free space on your iPad options to be displayed, and the rotary knobs can do horizontal rotating style or vertical style. And you can also import presets or export your presets. Next up, we've got the manual, which was really helpful for getting started with this. I recommend going to the actual website, the MultiTrackStudio.com website. The manual is also there. I think it's probably getting updated every time they push an update. And I recommend going to see their manual on their website, MultiTrackStudio.com, and checking out the manual there because it's searchable. This is still a good format to have just for a quick guide anytime I want to see what a keyboard shortcut is or something like that. It helps me out, but I still prefer to look at it on the website itself. And you've got their contact information here if you want to do that. Now here you've got monitor, punch in, SOS, and you've got the record menu here where you can decide to do full punch in, punch out, monitoring, auto detect keyboard channel, which is, I believe, for this keyboard here, this keyboard down here, it'll basically automatically assign the MIDI to the audio unit that you have pulled up. You see it's on channel 1 right here, and the keyboard was just on that. But if we were to make it channel 7 and then pull up the keyboard, it still works. And then we go to channel 1, it still works. So it automatically knows. Now, if we were to turn this off, and then we were to turn it to channel 6, all of a sudden it doesn't work. Because right now this is configured to be on channel 1. But when we turn this back on, auto detect, it works again. So definitely pretty cool to have that option available. That's pretty traditional of most DAWs, but this kind of gives you some of that AUM type of vibe where you can have the built-in keyboard automatically go off of the AU that is selected. You've got the option to snap to grid, as well as being able to have what you see follow the playhead. So once the playhead goes out of the screen, will the screen move with the playhead? Let's try it out. As you can see, it follows it, and if we turn it off, it doesn't follow it. So pretty self-explanatory. And right here, we can have our transport display seconds or bars, and we can do our tempo or time signature editor. And this thing is really cool because it allows you to change your time signature as you want. And you can also, at any point in your song, decide that you want to change the tempo. So right here, for instance, this is the first bar. So we can have the first half of the first bar be at 120, and then we can make it 180 right here. And then we can bring that back down to 120 and then make it 180 again. Pretty crazy, but that is something that you can do, which is pretty insane and something that you don't see too often on iOS DAWs. And in order to bring that back to the rest of the tempo, you can go ahead and move that. And then move that back down to 120 again. And everything is consistent again like it was. So pretty incredible feature for those more creative musicians out there who want tempo variations throughout their track. I think this is pretty dope. And now I'm going to create a song from scratch so you can see exactly what comes up when we make a song from scratch. We start off with an empty track right here, and it isn't MIDI or audio yet until we actually add track in this menu here. We can add an audio track and decide if we want it to be mono or stereo. And from there, we've got play, record, our meters right here, our volume faders right here, mute, solo, panning, and then this is our effect return right here. So right now it's got the reverb connected to it, so we've automatically got a send of reverb coming back into the audio layer. And then when we actually do record, we could go ahead and open the waveform by tapping on this window here. We would see a waveform displayed. And in the case of MIDI, we would go ahead and add a MIDI track. We could enable patterns. I'm not going to go ahead and go through all of that, but we could enable patterns for some of you who like to have patterns already built in, or to work with patterns in general. You're able to do that, but I'm just going to add a MIDI track. And right now we've got the same options. We can put it in play and record option here. And if you double tap the play button, you actually get practice mode. And this can be done on the audio or the MIDI track. And practice mode is good for rehearsing or, you know, playing some ideas over the track that you have currently, but you don't necessarily want to commit them yet. You just want to see what they might sound like. You've got practice mode for that. And then play will keep the track playing, almost like a launcher. And then if you take play off, it'll stop the launching of it. So that's the way I like to think of it. It's kind of like launching your tracks when you deal with the play and the not play mode. Now, again, we've got the metering here. We've got the fader here. This is kind of awkward, I know, for a lot of you to see a volume fader going horizontally, but I was actually doing this on my launch pad in order to save space because those faders take up so much real estate on the launch pad itself. So for me, I'm perfectly fine with this. I can work with the faders horizontally. And you've got mute and solo again. You've got pan as well. And here you've got your instrument selector. So currently we have the external MIDI instrument selected, but if we were to hit this dot down here, we can go ahead and decide what we want. We'll go with an AU. And let's go with digitalism. And so we've got digitalism loaded in now, and we've got 2 more slots for actual effects with this AU. Now, say we wanted to add something like MTS Piano Roll 2 or another AU MIDI effect type of plugin, we would have to hit this dot here and say add MIDI effects slot. Unfortunately, this does count against our already very few effects that we are able to have access to. And so from here, we can now add an MTS Piano Roll 2, for instance, and we could go ahead and work with an MTS Piano Roll 2. And then we could print that straight to this piano roll here. And this is our piano roll. Now I'm going to demo a couple things with the MTS Piano Roll 2 throughout this review. But first of all, I'm going to show you a cool way that you can go ahead and make something in its piano roll and then go ahead and get it into the piano roll of MTS. Now, as you know, using BeatMaker 3 or Nano Studio 2, it is not an easy process to get your MIDI from MTS Piano Roll 2 into the arrange window of those apps. You can try to do it with the MIDI route tool, or you could try to export your MIDI out of MTS Piano Roll 2 into BeatMaker 3 or Nano Studio 2, but none of these solutions are really elegant. But what you can do with MTS is actually pretty cool. So these windows are not really resizable the way that we're used to on iOS. We have to click this hamburger here and then hit large view, and you know, we can't really resize them custom like we would want. But that is the way that MTS rolls, unfortunately. I know some of you guys will probably be annoyed by that, but it's not a big deal once you get used to the app a little bit. But let's go ahead and do a let's do a C major here. And we'll go ahead and turn the launch on, and we'll play that back. Okay, so you see that there's a little bit of latency here. I notice a little lag on the actual playback, but it comes out pretty cool. Now we've got our MIDI here starting on 1. And what I like to do, because this app has no pre-count, which is kind of weird, I know, but it doesn't have a pre-count. So what I've learned to do in this app is just leave an open bar at the beginning. So I'll go ahead and do the same for Adam Piano Roll 2. And we can see we've got our piano roll for this in the background. So let me see if I'm gonna make the view smaller on this so that we can see them side by side. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit apply to track. And almost like magic, the MIDI is bounced directly into MTS's Piano Roll, and Adam Piano Roll 2 is automatically bypassed, which is pretty nice. It does a couple repeats of it for whatever reason. It does help if you're trying to kind of get a, say a 8-bar or longer measure built off of, only a little bit of information. Maybe 4 bars, you get at least 8 bars out of that, which is pretty cool. And this piano roll, again, is able to be hidden or shown simply by hitting this graphic here. And it's also expandable. So we could drop out this MIDI keyboard here, and then now we've got the full screen that can be the piano roll, which is really cool. Another thing I really like is, say you select a chord, it'll tell you what the chord is, which real useful. And then you can also decide what your view is going to be as you're building this. Say you like to do sheet music stuff, you can go ahead and work within this environment, which I know nothing about, but some people do and really appreciate it. I like to work within the piano roll, however. There's also the drum grid environment if you prefer that. Not really my thing, but hey. Now, there's so much that you can do within this piano roll. It's kind of crazy all the things you can do. Let's say you wanted to draw a chord, that's no problem. I'm able to hit Option and click and it automatically makes a note. But then let's say I want to expand this to a chord. I can go ahead and hit major and it automatically makes a major chord for me. So I can copy and paste with a keyboard shortcut, no problem. And it's also got the Nano Studio 2 style handles where you can move them with the handles themselves, or you can click it and move it. Also edit, undo, all those keyboard shortcuts work great. And this here allows you to move it up and down however you see fit. Now, say you want to change the note velocity, make the chord a little bit more, human, you go ahead and do that. And I don't know what difference it makes on that synth, but nonetheless, on other instruments, it'll definitely make a bigger difference and you'd be able to do that. You can also go through this and change all these parameters. You can make modulation a thing if that's something you want to do. So select all, draw on a bunch of modulation, see if that does anything. I hear a difference. So yeah, edit, undo all of that. And you can go ahead and change volume, pan, expression, sustain, soft, brightness, reverb, chorus, channel aftertouch, etc., etc. So a lot of stuff you can do, a lot of powerful stuff. So I went ahead and I opened up Drambo, and I'll go ahead and go to my instrument rack, and we'll go to Mario's Trap, and we'll pull up our keyboard here. Okay, so we've got a hi-hat right here, so we'll go ahead and record this in. Okay, that's all we need. We'll go ahead and go into the piano roll, expand this out 4 bars. And now we can go ahead and split into equal parts. And we can split it into 16. And that basically is like a quarter note. Or we could go ahead and split it into, say, 32. And which I think is pretty cool to be able to quickly get something going. So for instance, you could do a triplet of 16. You know what I mean? And it's just that easy. Now the reverb we're hearing is from this return, so we could make that dry. Or that easy, and that's not taxing the system because it's coming from our synth, which is really cool. So you could really build out your hi-hats, your drums really easily within this piano roll. It's very, very powerful, and it's so easy to just add a note. Really, really simple stuff. And with the pencil, for instance, if I was to take the pencil, you can go ahead and swipe across. Or say you have your finger and you long tap. If you pull to the left, you'll select the part. So that's what happens if you pull to the left. Now, if you pull down, you'll actually add a note that you can then move wherever you want. So very, very powerful, very capable. And again, you've got 3 different options. You could use the Apple Pencil. You could go ahead and use a finger tap, or you could use the mouse and keyboard, and that works wonderfully. And you've got right click, which is crazy. So this is what right clicking does. You get the sub menu here with find selected part, select left, select right, unselect, play looping, add note, add tuplet. So lots of options within this piano roll. And again, it's all about the flexibility of it. You can either click it and move it, or you can pull from this handle over here. So yeah, a lot of really powerful stuff. But now moving on, I'm going to get to this area right here, this piano. And for this, I'm going to add another MIDI track and go ahead and add in a piano. Let's go with pure piano. Now for you Magic Keyboard case owners, or the Logitech Combo Touch case owners, or whatever keyboard case you might own, you are in for a real treat with this virtual keyboard here. You are actually able to type your notes. Which is a beautiful thing. You will only see this feature in a few apps. Drambo's one of them for sure. There's a couple of others, and I know that you can use Sidecar in order to kind of make this happen, but having this built directly into this DAW is pretty incredible, and that's just where it starts. This is actually an AU MIDI app within here. And so you can hit options on the side, and you've got chords, you've got a guitar fretboard, bass, violin, drums, a matrix here, or you can load an AU MIDI plugin. So for instance, one of my favorite to load in happens to be the Xequence AU keys. So you can go ahead and load them in, change the size, and you can go ahead and change the scale. I think we're in a C major, so we'll go ahead and stick with that. And we've got the C major scale loaded up in Xequence keys, and what I like about Xequence is it's got so many different, is it Xequence or Sequence? I don't know, but it's got so many different customizable options with the pitch and modulation, and you can assign other CCs to this as well. Or you can hide those entirely, it's no problem. You can select your scale. You can select to have a double keyboard setup for you professionals out there. But yeah, when you hit the top of it, plays really light. So yeah, you can really articulate a lot of feel with this great keyboard, and this is just really the tip of the iceberg. So yeah, this is a really incredible MIDI AU that you can go ahead and add to and have take over. There are some other apps I have been using in this space that I can't show you because I'm beta testing for them right now. But let's just say that this area right here is incredibly capable, and anything that you do is recorded straight to this area. Now we're going to go ahead and make a click track, because in order to get a metronome, you have to make a click track. I know, unconventional, but the good news is that it should be following the different tempo if you do tempo changes. So I think that's why they went with a click track. It just suits those who want flexible tempos. So different, and it is an extra step, but it's really not a big deal once you get used to it. We go ahead and record enable this. So as you can see, everything records directly to the piano roll with no problem. And if we wanted to quantize that, we would go ahead and select everything, hit edit, hit quantize, and then it would be quantized. So yeah, a lot of different possibilities in terms of workflow there. And another workflow that I've been having fun with is using Drambo as the place where I'm holding drum samples. And then I can use the keys to go ahead and play. Let's see, let's go chromatic. So I can use the keys to go ahead and play my drums, or I could load up Xequence or Xequence, however you say it, pads, go to my Drambo drum pad map here, and no problem, super easy, and I'm able to have a full set of 4x4 or whatever other drum layout I want to have for whatever app or AU that I want to use, which is pretty cool. But let's say that I don't want to touch the screen at all, which is crazy to have an iPad and not want to touch the screen at all. But sometimes, hey, that's life. You're in a situation where you just want to use your keyboard on a Magic Keyboard case or whatever other case you have with the keyboard attached. And you simply want to be able to make the most of that configuration, almost like you were typing a paper, but instead you're making a beat. We're going to go back to the stock keyboard configuration. And as you can see, I can go ahead and even play my Drambo samples that way, which is crazy. So I'm able to do that. Another thing I want to show you is how we can lock our typing keyboard to a scale, which is pretty insane. So we'll go ahead and add a MIDI effect slot here, add them to Piano Roll. And we will lock the scale to, let's just do a C major since that's what we've been doing. And I like to map the keys to white. It just makes it simpler for me to understand. Take that out of practice mode, go into practice mode on the piano. And as you can see, the J's, H, 2, 3, they do nothing because we map to white. And right now I'm just typing on the keyboard. And if I want to lower the note velocity, I can pull this slider down to the left. Of course, you're not able to get the multi-velocity playing that you could get with a dedicated MIDI controller or with an app like Xequence Keys or other great Midi AU piano apps. But in a pinch, using a keyboard case on an iPad, this is really indispensable because it gives you a tactile feel. You can play in scale, and this is just something that I've never really seen done before on iOS. And then you could go ahead and just enable record, hit the space bar. And that was the 808s because I switched the Drambo kit. It was hi-hats before, but that was just 808s going, but it still worked. Kind of different, but that is just the beginning of what is possible. And then what I would probably do is add another track, or we could try duplicating this track here, erasing the MIDI. And is our scale lock still on? It appears to be, but I'm gonna go ahead and switch this to track 3 just so that Adam doesn't get confused by what we've got going on here. And I will switch this MIDI to 4 just to make sure that we've got this cleared. So if I was to add another layer here, I could go ahead and add another piano layer or anything else I want it with ease and still be locked to the C major scale. As you can see, the black keys do not play because we've mapped them all to whites. And just like that, we could really get something going here with this very powerful app. And another thing I want to show you is how incredibly easy it is to drag and drop chords onto the piano roll. Let's go ahead and create a new session, C major. We'll choose that scale. We'll go ahead and go to our chord suggestions. So C major, let's go ahead and drop this at 1. We can go D minor at 2. Then we can go A minor at 3. And then E minor at 4. Just like that, we've got something started, and we could go ahead and use the piano roll and kind of do our thing. We could easily So just that simple, we are able to drag and drop MIDI in from suggestion into the piano roll and work within the piano roll comfortably. But let's say, you know what, we wanted to take it to another level. We wanted to split into equal parts, and let's go quarters. So yeah, as you can see, it's incredibly powerful. There's a bunch of different workflows that you could utilize. It's really up to you, the one that works best for you. But for me, I'm really enjoying how powerful this app is. I'm liking that I can hide the piano roll at any time and easily get it to show up again. This area here really allows you to keep track of your entire song very easily. And another thing I'm going to show you before we go here, and this is something in the Pro mode, is the Midi Editor. And this shows you all of your MIDI tracks at once. And if you click one of these here, you're able to decide what layer you're going to draw. So if we were to click the green one, we will be drawing the green. Yellow is the Drambo. This is pure piano, the first one, and this is the second one. So this is like having ghost notes in order to be able to track your chord and what you've got going on. So let's go ahead and erase what we initially did here. So we've got that erased. I'll take Adam out as well, just because I don't feel like wasting that slot. And we'll go back into the what is it called? The Midi Editor. We'll go back to the Midi Editor. So yeah, really, really easy. And then let's say from there, we wanted to go ahead and add some 808s to it. All right. And we'll go back into the Midi Editor. And we want to go track 3. Actually, we're not playing. Yep, let's make sure we're playing. Make sure that's launched and go back in. Okay, so we've got that there. We go ahead and add another Drambo track. So we go ahead and take a hi-hat. We'll record in really quick. Now that we know what note it is in the piano roll, we'll go ahead and extend that. And we will go ahead and split this into equal parts. And we'll go 32 parts. Turn down that reverb. And we could take out a part here. And then we'll take this and split in equal parts. And we'll go ahead and split in equal parts again. And we'll go ahead and delete this. All right, so we got that part, and we'll go ahead and duplicate this Drambo track here. So we'll go ahead and put our snare in. Okay, we'll go back in there and we'll go ahead and quantize all of this. Okay, duplicate. Okay, so we've got a kick here, and I basically just want the kick to follow what the 808's doing. So what I'm gonna do is, I've got my kick now clearly marked. I'm gonna go into the Midi Editor, all MIDI tracks, and this blue is going to be our kick. So what I wanna do is make sure that it matches up with our yellow. So we're just going to go ahead and make sure that blue is selected, and we'll go ahead and draw in everywhere that we see the yellow because we want it to match our 808s. So bam, now our kick is matching our 808s. And as you can see sometimes with these notes, the 808 was hidden behind this note. That's just how it goes sometimes. You can select the note and then you can see behind it. But yeah, so got that layer laid. Go ahead and hit duplicate and delete the old MIDI data because we've got the other track up here that still has it. So this is how I like to work within this DAW quickly when I'm building my track with Drambo. Okay, so go ahead and quantize this and probably take a couple of those out because I wasn't filling a couple of them. Take that last one out and start at 1. Okay, got that laid in there. This is the quick example of how you can build something really quickly and easily. We just took some chords from Suggester and then went ahead and just chopped them up in the piano roll here very easily. This is the best piano roll in terms of editing MIDI, I believe, that you could find on iOS. I love Atom Piano Roll 2 for its features overall, but in terms of being able to use a mouse and keyboard shortcuts and right click and things just be really easy to assemble, especially with this Midi Editor, you're just good, whatever you need. And then let's say we want to make it longer, we'll go ahead and select everything, go to bar 5, copy paste, do it again, copy paste, move everything, and we are good. And then the changes from what we just did reflect on all of the timelines. So say, you know what, we want to not have digitalism be there at the beginning. We can just delete that, and then it'll come in at a different time. And we could keep building this, and I probably will, but that's just a quick example of some of the things that you can do with this incredibly powerful DAW. I know that the look is real unconventional. It could be off-putting for some. It definitely doesn't look like some of the more modern, sleek iOS DAWs that we've got. But in terms of features, especially if you've got a Magic Keyboard case, and you feel like you spent $200 to $300 on your keyboard case, maybe even almost $400 if you got the 12.9 iPad, the most modern one, the M1, and you had to pay $350 plus for that magic keyboard case. You have not been able to get your money's worth in terms of music making with that keyboard case. All that changes today with this DAW. So be sure to check it out. This feature here, which I love, by the way, because it's like having ghost notes, is only available with the Pro purchase upgrade, which I believe is another $25 on top of the $30. So we're talking a serious investment, but the results that I've been getting out of this DAW are crazy. I'm really enjoying it, and I haven't even gotten to the vocal part yet, which I plan to do. I originally got this DAW to track vocals, but instead I ended up using it for MIDI, and I've been going crazy with it. So I really look forward to checking it out with vocals. And once I test it out with vocals, I'll be sure to leave another review letting you know what I think of it for that. But for MIDI, I'm really enjoying it. A couple things to look out for if you're into being able to assign MIDI keyboards and, knobs. I've not been able to find any kind of Midi Learn stuff here. So that's something to be aware of. Another thing is there is no, like I said, dedicated metronome in the playhead. The tempo change is not in the playhead like most people would be used to. And there's no stock counting. You've got to build your counting in from scratch. Again, not a big deal because you can set your loop points to be starting at bar 1. So you just right click here and then you can go loop start. And then you can go to where it all ends at. I believe for us it was 17. So yeah, this is the playhead indicator. You can see right here as I move this at the top, it moves right here. So yeah, if we move to 17, we could go set loop in, hit the loop button. And now the counting is gone. You see it loops perfectly fine, and you're able to not even think about the count-in that we originally had to deal with. And at the end of the day, what you can also do is select all of your tracks here, and then you just move them. Just like that, and they'd be right at 1. So yeah, really easy to work around. A lot of this stuff is not a problem at all. But yeah, there you have it. MTS or MultiTrackStudio, one of the best DAWs that I have encountered on iOS. Crazy to say it, but that is how I'm feeling about this DAW. So be sure to check it out. It is not cheap. It's $30 initially from the App Store, and then to get all of the unlocks that come with it, you're going to be spending another $30 or $25, something like that. $25, $30, what's the difference? It's all expensive when you put them together, but it feels very professional. And for those of you who are worried about getting your stuff from iOS to desktop, there's a desktop version of this app, and I don't know how those two projects connect and if they will, you make one on one and it opens on the other. It's really a beautiful thing to have a one-to-one desktop and iPad solution where they can have a handshake. I hope that's how it works. I would guess that's how it works, but I'll have to get this for desktop in order to find out. But anyways, that's going to conclude the walkthrough video for today. If you made it this far into the video, I hope you found it useful. And if you did, please be sure to hit the like button, as well as the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you don't miss out on the latest news, tips, tricks, sales, beats, reviews, walkthroughs, updates, and more. But if you have any questions or see something that we missed or could have done differently, or videos you would like to see from us in the future, be sure to leave a comment down below. And with that said, we're about to get out of here. It's iPadBeatMaking.com. Peace.